All right, hello and welcome to the Cultivators Conversation, a video series brought to you by Cultivate, where we chat with a variety of people in our Cultivators community about several topics that may be of interest for people who have a desire to change the status quo. I'm Jeff, and joining me today is Caroline Tan and Sierra Lee. Welcome, ladies. Thanks for joining us. And this is episode 3 or part 3 of a 3-part episode about emotional intelligence. Our conversation for this episode and the other 2 were inspired by an article written by Ron Carucci of the Harvard Business Review, where he posed the question, is your emotional intelligence authentic or self-serving? Kind of a tough question. And in reading it, I kind of started to question myself at times. But so this portion of the article that the both of you read and that we'll discuss today is about the need for approval, right? Dressed up as self-awareness. And so I found it interesting reading, and it talked about leaders who asked their team the leader in their mind, they think, I want my team to give me feedback so that I can improve and be a good leader, right? Which is common. But the author suggested that there is a possibility that you can be overbearing with it, maybe. Is that what you took away from it? So my question to you, let's start with Caroline, maybe. Have you ever worked for someone like this? I mean, obviously not your current boss.
Obviously not my current boss.
Right.
I have, actually. A couple of years ago. And it had never clicked with me. I was fresh out of school, and she was constantly asking me for feedback, but she was also constantly giving me feedback. So I thought it was a nice two-way street. And then sometimes in the tone of her voice, in the way she phrased the questions, you could kind of tell she's like, oh, right, okay, I did know that. I did do that well. Thank you. And then I would kind of walk away, and I was like, all right, cool. I made her day, her confidence level was skyrocketing. She's going to have a great rest of her Tuesday. But reading that article, it kind of clicked. Like maybe it wasn't as pure as I thought it was.
It's almost like did you feel like you had to babysit her ego? Is that right?
It's fair to say. And I think I'm not perfect. I also sometimes fish for compliments, whether it's work or outside of work. And it's nice to feel that extra sense of approval from someone else who sees it in you.
Yeah. A good leader, we're all taught, right? A good leader does check in with their team and is what I'm doing right. So if there's a wrong way to do it, what is the right way to do it?
That is a great question.
It's all up to you.
Glad she got that one. I didn't.
Right.
I think that there is
how would you do it?
Your intentions, right? Like really what you're asking of your team and really how you're setting up that question. Because if you make it so that giving good feedback is like the reinforced thing, like every time I give good feedback, my boss is happy, like she's ready to go, she's ready to take the day, you're like, yeah, I want to do that again. But if you really frame it in a way like, no, tell me what I need to work on, like, let's talk about that kind of stuff. And then you reinforce them for being honest and you say, like, thank you for telling me about that. I never thought about it that way and that kind of stuff. So I think that, for leaders trying to make sure that they're asking in the right way, you really have to make sure that you're setting up your employees to understand what you're asking of them and really like saying thank you when they do the thing that you want.
So maybe, right. And so, and it's how you respond to it, the feedback, right? And I guess, we're maybe picking on bosses. So let's say just anybody, right? We work together and I might, just to be a good teammate, I might want to ask you and say, hey, is this the right way to do something? Or, am I overbearing with that? But I think, right, there's a border or there's a line to cross between like being obsessed with what everybody thinks of you and truly asking, as you put it, Sierra, in the interest of making a better work environment. So
actually, we're having this, they're called cohort discussions, but we group certain levels together and we'll talk about what we want to change about the firm that I work for. And I was the nominee to report back to our senior leader about what my personal cohort talked about. And one of our discussion points was that we want more constant feedback. We want it, every month on our coaching calls. We want both the good and the bad. And when I said that to my leader, he said, well, are you ready for criticism? Do you all know how to handle it?
I think that's fair.
And I responded, I don't really know, because we have a very positive culture at our firm, very supportive one, which I love, but no one tends to say anything bad. Not bad, just constructive. So if we're not exposed to it before, we don't really know how to handle it.
Suddenly realizing what everybody really thinks.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, do I want to know? I don't know.
But I do like the setup, right? Like the fact that your boss asked again, and it sounds like the way that it was asked was very much like, I want to give honest feedback, but I care about how it's going to be received. I don't want to lower morale because of it.
Right.
But if you're asking for it, we all need to be okay with it. Then you're going to probably have a little bit of an adjustment period where some people have to learn how to give that kind of feedback, because there's a way to do it that's, like you said, constructive, right? How do you respond when somebody gives you constructive feedback, not criticism, constructive feedback?
When you were talking about how you would handle it, even saying thank you, acknowledging the effort it took for someone to have the courage to tell someone senior than they are, I think you could do this better. This is how it makes me feel. That goes a long way, because I think a lot of cultures don't promote that upward feedback. I think it's been changing, and I've seen it change, but it's still hard. They matter. They lead the practice. And if you say something negative, you're worried it might negatively impact you. So I think saying thank you is a great start. We'll go with that.
For me, if you suggest something to me, I'm going to go in and try it your way. I want to demonstrate to you that I'm not offended. I can take the kind of feedback. I know that it's not personal. It's in the interest of producing better work as a team. And hopefully that by modeling that, then the rest of the team, you develop trust that way. What would you tell that boss who was maybe overbearing, over needy?
Yeah, I am a very forward person, and I would give feedback. I would, straight up do that. And I think how I would approach this is by genuinely giving them feedback. Being able to say hey, you always ask us what we think and what blah 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 blah, and you are posing this thing, do you really want to know what we think of X, Y, and Z? And framing it that way, showing I'm coming from a place of concern about X, Y, or Z. I want to be doing the thing that you're asking us to do. Is that okay? Getting their permission first to give them honest, pure feedback. Sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes there are just personal things that you can't always give people resources to help with, but as much as you can do that, you should try, because it kind of shows that good faith effort, good faith understanding of what the other person is going through. And even that is kind of emotional intelligence too, right?
We know that, especially with the way the article was written, that these are people who maybe they took a course on emotional intelligence, and in the course it teaches you, let's call it tactics, right? And again, that sounds too disingenuous, but for lack of a better word, that these are things that you can do to improve your emotional intelligence, to show your employees or to show your coworkers that you truly are trying. But at the same time, there's what I took away from the article is there's a way to do it that's well, I guess that's why it's the title, right? That's authentic versus I'm checking a box.
Yes.
I was told to do this way, and that will make me an emotionally intelligent person, versus, I guess, Sierra and Caroline, what I hear you saying is people can read and tell the intent behind what you're saying and what you're asking. And so if you're asking and it's obvious that you're asking because, well, I just took a training last week that told me to ask, versus I truly want to know how we can improve as a team.
Yes,
Mhm.
completely. And I think that gets back to intentions, right? Like that gets back to, okay, well, if I check the boxes, then we'll be fine and everything
Right.
will be okay. Whereas really understanding, and I mean having like deep emotional intelligence, is understanding like it's going to get a little messy. If I ask them what I need to improve, I genuinely need to know what I need to improve in order to improve.
Right.
You can't do anything unless you say something about it.
Right. Some people might argue that, well, to develop a good team, you've got to connect beyond the work. So where's that balance? But I think you're both right where it starts within. And if my words, no one else's, that if you have that within you, that you have that true deep emotional intelligence, then you will be able to receive any kind of feedback because you have that power within you to compartmentalize and put that as professional feedback versus personal.
Yeah.
And that you'll also be able to demonstrate maybe to the other people that you work with that you are coming at this with the interest of truly improving. So it's all in genuine authenticity.
Yeah.
Carucci was right with the way he titled this.
You might know what he's talking about.
That's right. All right, so that we are out of time with these are short 10-minute conversations. So we're out of time for today's episode, but you've definitely teed up a couple of more that we can come back together for. Once again, for everybody watching, this was part 3 of a 3-part series. So if you're watching them out of order, Netflix style, you can go back and watch 1 and 2. You don't have to have watched them in order. So thanks for joining and watching Cultivators Conversations. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram. Our Instagram channel is We Are Cultivators. And if you're a change maker with a desire to change the status quo, join the Cultivators community by going to cultivateall.com/cultivators.